Welcome to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez, back here in the Broncos podcast studio with our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla, sitting right across the table from me. We're going to break down a few things in this episode, take a brief look back at Thursday's big win, talk about what it means to win the AFC West, and look ahead a little bit to the implications of what this upcoming weekend will mean as we get ready for the regular season finale against the Chargers. And we'll be in our throwbacks, which is why I'm wearing my new gear here with throwback logo, getting into, the right mindset. I love throwback week for more than just the jersey, but just like I love the throwback across all of our, social channels and website. I love just like the look that it kind of changes back. Plus, we play very, very well in our throwbacks. But I'm excited for this week. Again, a lot to get to. We're going to get some comments too in a second, but just brief thoughts. How are you feeling, fellow AFC West champion?
That's right. Yeah, I think you've got to feel good. It's the first time in 10 years that the Broncos have won a division title. And as we'll talk about, there are bigger goals. There are things that the Broncos still have to accomplish. And I think Adam Trautman put it well when he talked to us earlier today, and when we'll get into that. But I think the guys have the right perspective. But at the same time, I think it is worth celebrating, and certainly it was fun to see the guys react on Saturday afternoon when the Texans knocked off the Chargers. Kind of an untraditional way to win the division. You're used to doing it on the field, and this was a situation where you weren't in that locker room post game, but to see the guys still enjoy it, and obviously Broncos country enjoys it a lot as well. Yeah. So it was an exciting development, I guess, and an important step. And the Broncos earned it. I think that's important, right, is that the Broncos have won 13 games this season. They have their best start in more than a decade. I believe 2013 is the last time they started this well. And so they've earned this. And kudos to the Chargers. Like, they made it a tough battle. They'll make it a tough battle again this weekend. But I do think it gives you a singular focus this week, which is just the one seed, as opposed to, hey, is it the division? What's kind of at stake this weekend? And so for the Broncos to take care of business in KC on a short week, and we'll kind of offer some final thoughts there. It was a mature victory for them, and then it'd been a couple weeks since they'd really gotten any help from around the league, but they finally got some help on Saturday.
Yeah.
And, now they're back on top. And if you had told us this at the beginning of the year, we would have just been really impressed. And I think nationally, a lot of people thought this was one more year away, maybe. Mm-hmm. And Sean Payton mentioned several times, like, hey, I think this team has what it takes to compete for a championship. And nationally, people said, okay, well, let's see it. And the Broncos have gone out there and proved it. So credit to them. They've earned this. It's not something that, they backed into or they were given by any means. They've earned this, and credit to them, and still a lot more to accomplish.
I think a lot of the guys going into this Thursday night matchup talked about the importance of taking care of business. And then you have this mini bye week before you get ready to play the Chargers for your last game of the regular season. It's here at home. And they said, as long as we take care of what we can take care of, everything can play out in different ways. And as you mentioned, they did get help from around the league. Well, going back to that KC game really quick, 11-2 now in one-score games. They improved to 13-3, the first win in Kansas City since 2015. You said that in the instant analysis, which if you guys want a little nostalgia, go back to Thursday and watch that on our YouTube channel. Their first win on Christmas since 2004. And as you mentioned, the first 13-win season since 2013. So a lot of good things come when I feel like you get a win like this and you kind of forget it because it's like, oh, well, the win wasn't as quote unquote pretty and things like that. But it's a huge milestone for this team. And again, last year, I feel like when they went to Vegas and won for the first time, it's like you end certain storylines that you no longer want to be part of the conversation. And so it's like going into Kansas City, regardless of who's on the field, and getting a win in Arrowhead in December is not easy to do. And for the Broncos to do that, knowing what's on the line, knowing that the division, not potentially, who knows how they feel, but as a fan, I would not want ever so much to be on the line on the last game of the season. Obviously, playing for the one seed is important, but getting that AFC West title, I think, is a huge boost for this team. And it was fun to hear the guys react to it on Twitter. Alex Singleton mentioned that he was at Zoo Lights with his family when he got the news, and then the texts and things like that. So it's important to really internalize how special this is for this team and for the fan base and everything, and what this means going forward. But I think, the goals that head coach Sean Payton has laid out, this is the first one there. And so they checked that off, and now they have a chance in week 18 to check off the next one.
And I think it's like you look around the league, and I don't think there's a wrong way to celebrate a division title. And like I saw what New England did, which was they're bussing back from the airport, and Philly beats Buffalo, and they get out and they take that picture with the hats and the T-shirts, and like that's cool for them. But
the timing worked out there, right?
Yeah, the timing worked out.
So
and they also said, hey, that's their first goal as well. But I do think there's something to the fact that the Broncos, there was no team photo. It wasn't even mentioned in the team meeting on Monday morning that the hats and the T-shirts were just in their lockers, and it was kind of like, okay, let's move on to what's next. And I think that this team appreciates that perspective. And Chartman put it well when he said, like, we've been in the 1 seed for weeks, and so that's become our goal. And you need to win the AFC West to get there. But the first, or well, not the first goal, but like kind of the major goal, like the one they're chasing right now, is that 1 seed. And so it was just interesting. It's like, in some ways, and I think people say this all the time, like teams adapt the personality of their head coach. And like one of the things Sean Payton likes to say is you're going to play in bigger games, and you're going to play on bigger stages. And to me, the Broncos, the way they handled the division title was reflective of that, of like, okay, well, we're on to what's next. And it's almost like, not that you expect to win, but in some ways it was like, okay, that's just part of the process. The end all be all is not winning the division and getting the hat and getting the T-shirt. It's a path to something more. And so I think the way the Broncos handle this is really reflective of how they've always handled things the last few years under Sean Payton, of like, what's next. And I think that's a good attitude to have as you're heading into the postseason.
Well, we know Broncos country was really excited to be crowned AFC West champs. So let's go to the comments and see the pulse of Broncos country and exactly how they're feeling.
Yeah, and hopefully, if you're watching on YouTube, leave some comments so we can read about the AFC West. It's exciting, and want to hear your thoughts. But what we have here is basically from after the Chiefs game. Just a few comments. It seems like people were out celebrating the holiday with their families, as they should.
This is the best present, though.
But one comment, and this is on the analysis, actually. Sean Mahoney, 33, says that 4th and 2 play was perfectly executed by R.J. Harvey and Quinn Miners. Absolute masterclass on execution. I think that was obviously a big moment in the game. Talked about it on the instant reaction pod that I did the day after, and just a big moment, and really turned the game. It changed kind of the way everything unfolded, and that the Chiefs then needed a touchdown. They had fewer timeouts to work with, but I think we talk about the personality of the coach, right? And Sean Payton talks from the time OTAs start until the final days of training camp, and then whenever it comes up, is they show their guys situational football, and they show them, and they practice these scenarios. And he talks about how many different scenarios there are. And I guarantee this is something that they've practiced. And Quinn Miners, I think he was talking to Parker Gabriel and said the first time he tried to do this in practice, Sean Payton was like, it's not loud enough. And just the attention to detail. And way back when Sean Payton got hired, he said, everything matters, from the size of the towels to whatever else. And this was an example of like, everything matters, and the game is on the line, and you're in a key situation. And who knows what happens if you kick that field goal there? If you don't draw them off sides and you have to kick the field goal, do they go down and score? And then you don't know how it pans out. But I think the same way we just talked about with the division is the Broncos took control of their own destiny there, right? And so kudos to those guys for executing in a big moment. Seth Cisneros says, I think we'll actually see where this team's at next Sunday against the Chargers. We'll get to that. Just some big news as we're recording here about the Chargers. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show and what it means. Prestige says the national hate for Bo Nix is baffling to me. If Bo Nix were the problem, Denver's offense wouldn't get better as games go on. When execution improves, Bo takes over. This is the same quarterback who had one of the best rookie seasons in NFL history, led 12 late-game comebacks this year, and with a win over the Chargers would become the winningest QB ever in his first 2 seasons. Yeah, could tie Russell Wilson with a win over the Chargers in Week 18. And I said this, I think, on the post-game show. I said it again on the Instant Reaction podcast, but they don't win this game without Bo Nix. I saw a stat that compared how different quarterbacks have played against top 10, or excuse me, against playoff defenses. And Bo Nix was in the top 10, obviously right up there in Pro Bowl consideration. Bo Nix, when he plays at the level we saw against Kansas City or against Jacksonville for most of that game, against the Green Bay Packers, this is a guy that can go win playoff games, and the guys believe in Bo Nix. And one thing, Elisa, that I think we talked, or that I mentioned on the analysis, is like when he uses his legs, it opens up an entire new element for the Broncos too. And I get maybe, and I don't know how much of it is predetermined and how much of it is like him being smart in season of like not doing it too much. But I would guess in the playoffs, it's kind of like you see Josh Allen start to run a lot more in the postseason. I wonder if that'll be the same for Bo with like, hey, when if it's an AFC championship game or an AFC divisional round game, or, knock on wood, they can get that far, the Super Bowl, like maybe you're more willing to take that hit running down the field. So, and even then he does a good job of avoiding those. So that's something to watch, I think, is, hey, how do Bo Nix's legs factor in down the stretch here? Justin Billen says, I appreciate this intelligent and not artificial video. Oh. Okay. That's nice.
He likes that you're a real person.
Yeah. I like that I'm a real person too.
It's like when you call and then you're like, speak to representative. They're like, speak, guys.
I saw a meme and it was like somebody yelling at the phone, like, speak to representative.
Yeah.
That's me. I cannot stand the.
It's like, before I transfer you, please speak to representative. We're your representatives, Broncos country. We are here.
There's like never been a better indication or, yeah, that's me. And then last comment here from Broncos 10. Great team win, Denver. It wasn't pretty, but I'm happy that we took care of business to get the win. I hope we can get the rest that we need, so hopefully most players will be healthy and available to play in Week 18 and going into the playoffs. Go Denver Broncos. I like that comment. I think as we transition to just a couple thoughts here on that game, it wasn't necessarily pretty. It, as Sean Payton said, doesn't need to be. It doesn't have to be aesthetically pleasing as long as you get the win. And listen, I know there's games where, like, New England, for example, went out and just boat raced the Jets, and Drake May has thrown 5 touchdowns in, like, 25 minutes. And, like, I get that there's an element of Broncos country that wants to see that. I would say,
and we've seen it. We've seen it in some games. You know?
Exactly. But I think one thing Sean Payton appreciates and knows is how to get the win, and that's what matters. And this was a short week, Christmas week, had some guys banged up. I think Broncos ruled out at least 4 starters ahead of this game. Obviously lost their starting center to IR. Drake Greenlaw doesn't play. Nate Adkins doesn't play. Pat Bryant doesn't play. And that's with guys that you've already lost in recent weeks. So, like, not a completely healthy team. And yet they fought through it and they battled. And just look at Pittsburgh, for example, and it could be a team that still gets in the playoffs, but Pittsburgh goes to Cleveland, and with a win, they can help wrap up the division. I think it would have clinched the division, and they're unable to beat the Browns. And so that should speak to the challenge of playing a division team, playing on the road. Arrowhead's always a difficult place to play. It's, like I said, it's only the 4th time the Broncos have ever won there in December, ever, which is just crazy. I mean, the Broncos are now 4-17 in Arrowhead in December. And so the fact that they went and did it doesn't really matter to me who they played against or who came out of that locker room. As Sean Payton said, they still have that heart of a champion. And so that's kind of the lasting thing for me. And, we've talked a little bit about the way they were able to dominate time of possession. And I think that in a lot of ways it wasn't so different from that Raiders game. The difference was the execution in the red zone, and that if you execute a couple of those field goals and the touchdowns early, you're probably looking at a game that's 14-3 or 21-3, and the Broncos are, they're just kind of rolling away with it in the second half. And so when you have those low possession games, there is probably a fine line between blowing a team out and being in at the end of the game. But that said, I've seen again and again teams this year go and lose games that they shouldn't lose, or let one slip away that they really regret. And we could go on and on about different teams. And, like New England, for example, the reason the Broncos, and we'll talk about this, the reason the Broncos have the head-to-head is because the Patriots lost to the Raiders in week 1.
Yeah.
We've seen the Bills drop one in Miami.
Yeah.
You could keep going on and on. The Jags have obviously come on strong, but like they had a 19-point lead in Houston and let that slip away. So that's my – like, you could grab a handful of these wins from this year. Is it this one? Is it the Jets game? Is it, I'm trying to think of another, the Giants comeback, obviously memorable.
Right.
The Thursday night game against Vegas. Like, those 3 or 4 games, it's like, doesn't need to be pretty. They were wins. And now you put yourself in a position where you've won the AFC West for the first time in a decade. Yeah. And now you got bigger and better things.
Going back to that comment where you mentioned about, you not like carrying in terms of like who's on the field because they're going to make an impact. Look at the game between you had the Packers and the Ravens, I believe it was, and you had Tyler Huntley going against Malik Willis in that game. These are 2 backup quarterbacks, and they went head to head. And I think it's a good perspective to have, because it's like, these are NFL football players. Doesn't matter that they're the backup, doesn't matter that they're third string. They have a skill that the average person does not have to win football games. And when their number is called, they go in to work and do their job. And so that's why I think it's very important to put perspective into that, because I know a lot of chatter was talking about, who was on the field and X, Y, and Z. But, when it comes to games like that, especially division rivalry games, weird things always happen. They're always the toughest games to win. And going into this divisional matchup, the guys have a very clear message, and they're very excited to win the AFC West. But they also know, like, this is the game that they dropped early on in the season, and it was at the very beginning of the season, and now they have a chance to redeem themselves and get this win. And I know for guys like Alex Singleton, he mentioned it, like, that's the focus there. Like, we want to go in and get this win. And the game was announced in terms of timing for this weekend, so it's a normal schedule for the team. The game will be at 2:25 p.m. Mountain Time on Sunday, and head coach Sean Payton mentioned this game is very much like a playoff game. And I think when you have that mindset, that trickles down to the team of just the confidence, the understanding, the short memory, and it is beneficial to have a couple extra days to prepare for this matchup.
Yeah, and I think, like as I said at the top of the show, great to win the AFC West, and the Chiefs had won 9 years in a row, and so I don't want to take away from winning the division, because I think regardless of what else happens this season, and the players and coaches obviously want more, and the fan base wants more, but I think if you were to look back at this season in a couple years, like, I think you'll generally say whatever happens from here, the fact that you get a division title is a big deal and an important step forward in building this program. That said, I think Adam Troutman put it well when he said, and Alex Singleton said, I'm putting this hat and shirt in a box and I'll see it in 50 years when I unpack something. Adam Troutman was like, this is exciting, but it can also become a reminder of like what almost was, right? And that if you don't accomplish this year what you want to accomplish, then to some degree it'll be like what could have been. And, I think about the Lions, and Dan Campbell, I think last year after they lost to Washington, said he told his team that this could be our chance. Like, this could have been our one chance. And obviously they missed the playoffs this year. And you hope that you've got a chance every single year, but you never know when is your best chance. And so that's where, like,
well put.
I mentioned a second ago, like, hey, this will be like, you can always have this division title, but that said, you never know, is this your best run at it? And will you have a chance in the future to be the 1 seed? Like, certainly hope so, but we've just seen this league be so difficult to get back that you want to make the absolute most of this situation, of this opportunity. And I think like that's why it makes so much sense that right after winning the AFC West, the attention is on to LA, and like there wasn't time spent on this. Like they didn't, as I said earlier, there wasn't like a group photo, and there wasn't a bunch of time spent partying. Like you enjoy it on Saturday night, I'm sure, and then you move on. And what you're moving on to is critically important. And I saw this on Twitter. You can view it as the Broncos essentially have two chances to get to the divisional round, because either you win this week and you get a bye to the divisional round, or if you don't win this week, you have another chance in the wild card round to get to the divisional round. Obviously, the bye is a big deal. As Sean Payton said, you eliminate essentially one chance where you could lose a football game. Maybe it's not your day, you're not playing well. Maybe the other team is just playing out of their mind. You eliminate one of those games, and you put yourself in a place, as we've said for weeks now, where you win 2 home playoff games and you get to the Super Bowl. And then you are one game away, and anything can happen in one game. You're one game away from winning a Lombardi, the 4th in franchise history, and really establishing this as an unforgettable season. So I think there's that element of it, of why it's important. Sean Payton said the home field advantage is critically important. I think Adam Troutman mentioned that the Jaguars game was the loudest he'd heard it. Yeah. And just the difficulty of going on the road in the postseason versus playing at home is incredibly different. So one of the big things would be playing these games here at Empower Field at Mile High.
Well, as you mentioned, head coach Sean Payton is all about the details, and the players think about those things too. Adam Troutman mentioned, like, you don't have to get on a plane, you don't have to go to the hotel and check in there and try to get comfortable, and those little details matter. And so I think that it's important that you do what you can to secure yourself being in a place that you're comfortable playing in. Obviously, the Broncos have only lost one game at home this entire season, and Broncos country has been so galvanized around this team and so loud. When me and Steve go down for the halftime, we have fun. Like, Steve will raise his hands up, trying to get the crowd loud or louder, actually. But it's so loud sometimes then that we're kind of just like, wow. Like, we got to just like soak it in of just how special it is to play there, how special this season has been. And I think that's, once again, is like that mindset of understand that it's all important. And Alex Singleton mentioned it's really exciting, and it is the first goal to win the division. But we have one goal now, and that's to win this game. We have one message and one opportunity, and it's to get things done on Sunday. And that starts with the preparation going into this week, that goes into practice going into this week. And that, I feel like that mindset trickles down to the rest of the players, whether it's the next man up mentality or just continue to do your job. I think that's one of the things we mentioned after that loss to the Jaguars, where they mentioned, like, we just need guys to do their jobs. And that's exactly what happened in Thursday's win. And you see, like, when you are able to do these things and you practice, this certain 4th and 2 possession, and you do your job the way that we practiced it, good things will happen. And obviously that happened with that 4th and 2 and then continuing to end with the touchdown. So I think the progression of this team has been really impressive. The way that Bo Nix has continued to battle through, whether what adversity or things that he kind of pushes through, whether it's a pick and he bounces back, I think is really key. And this defense has not wavered in terms of what they are willing to do on the field. And I know that the one thing that they are looking at fixing, or not quote fixing, but like getting better at, is turnovers. And that is something that's going to be key for Sunday. Yeah,
the takeaway battle is one thing that'll determine the outcome of Sunday's game, and then really the postseason in general. And for all the good that the Broncos have done this year, we've talked about it, that it's really less so the turnovers are on offense. I think the Broncos are like 12th in turnovers. Like, it's not exactly where you want to be, but it's not egregious. The takeaways just haven't necessarily come, and that's something that Sean Payton has said, it can be fixed. And we've seen this defense with this same defensive system take the ball away before, and we've seen the Broncos be really close with some interceptions and getting the ball out. And so it can turn, but you also need it to turn, right? Because I was looking at basically the standings and who's taken the ball away in past years. And I think it was something like 10 of the last 15 Super Bowl champions have been in the top 2, I believe, of teams that take the ball away in the postseason. And so that's nothing to do with regular season. It just has to flip. You have to flip the switch once you get to the postseason. And the Eagles, for example, last year were plus 12 in the turnover margin. And like you think of that as I look back and I think that was a really good team. And I think of, Cooper DeJean's pick six, and I think of a couple other plays, but you kind of forget maybe a little bit, like just how much of, like if you had asked me how many, I think I was looking at their takeaway margin was better than anybody in the last 15 years. And I don't know that I would have guessed that, but they took care of the ball on offense and they took it away on defense. And when you have, that's 12 takeaways, that's an extra 3 per game over 4 games. You have 3 extra possessions. That matters. And so if you're the Broncos and you welcome in a team like, I don't know, Buffalo, Houston, LA, like those are the wild card teams that you could face in week 1, or excuse me, in the divisional round if you get the bye, Pittsburgh or Baltimore, you're going to need to find a way to get 1 or 2 big turnovers. And if you're Bo Nix in this offense, finding ways to not turn the ball over. Yeah. I mean, in that, was it the Green Bay game that RJ Harvey had the early fumble, right? And the Broncos came back and won that football game, but it puts you in a tough spot. The late turnovers against the Jags, like those are the things that you have to get cleaned up. And in a one and done, it's not the World Series, right? Like it's a one and done scenario, and one fumble, one interception.
Game of inches. It's the game of inches.
Like that can all change things. And obviously, if you look back to, and we talked about it last week, if you look back to the run to Super Bowl 50, I mean, obviously Vaughn's strip sacks of Cam Newton are one thing, but you got the interception, you've got in the AFC Championship, you've got Vaughn's pick that sets up a score, got the fumble recovery against the Steelers. I mean, those were big plays and kind of playoff defining moments. And so that's something that I'm sure will be harped on, not just this week, but all through the bye week, if you get it. And it'll be critical, and it's something that you hope shows up. And I also think that's maybe it's more of a feel thing, but like I would think at home, especially with this pass rush, that there's maybe a better chance of those showing up than on the road. That might just feel kind of like speculation, but it feels like the crowd's loud. And you've got a chance to make some game-changing plays. So that'll be big. But you're right. To get there, you've got to find a way to beat the Chargers. And Elisa, as we started recording this, you were dialed in. You got the breaking news alert. If we had a producer, we could throw in some music. But yeah, big news out of LA.
Yeah, huge news. Head coach Jim Harbaugh told reporters that Justin Herbert will not start on Sunday versus the Denver Broncos. It is a huge kind of implication for this game. Obviously, the Broncos are battling for that number 1 spot in the AFC, but I think the other aspect of that is now the Chargers have lost the division. It's like, how do we play this, right? It's like, do we save him for the playoffs? It's the NFL is very much like a chess game. Sometimes you have to think 2 steps ahead all the time, and you kind of have to sacrifice your pawn a little bit in order to potentially go further in the game. So it's going to be huge because this game kind of switches a bit in how you prepare for it, because you obviously know what Justin Herbert can do. And now you're kind of going into this matchup with an extremely important mindset for the number 1 seed in Week 18. And there's a lot of scenarios, but the easiest one, as we mentioned, if the Broncos win, then it's over. They are the number 1 seed in the AFC. They get that bye week, which is crucial, as you mentioned, due to the guys that we have banged up. An extra week will be very helpful going into the divisional round and obviously hosting the playoffs for the remainder as long as the Broncos continue to win. So huge news. What was your kind of reaction when I told you that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've gone from, 2 things stand out. One is this is a game that you'd love to win, to I don't want to overdo it, but it now feels like a game you need to win, right? Just because, and we heard Alex Singleton say it on Monday, Justin Herbert is one of the best players in the entire NFL. And we saw him on Saturday. He's getting hit again and again and again. And he is carrying that Chargers offense and making big play after big play. He had a touchdown or 3rd down conversion that set up a Chargers score, and he had like two guys hanging off him, and he throws it for a completion on third down to pick up the conversion. And it's like, how is he doing this? Like, he is playing at a really high level. And so I think no matter, like, obviously they've had offensive line injuries. They're missing a linebacker who's been suspended for the last game. Like, they're missing other key guys, but like Herbert is the guy, and you hear Jim Harbaugh talking about him, that makes this thing go. And so any game with Herbert, I think, is a challenge. And going into this, I felt, like the Broncos would be right in this game, just like they've been in every game against the Chargers over the last 2 years. But they haven't beaten the Chargers in the last 2 years. And so the Broncos were going to have to find something and find a way to beat Justin Herbert for the first time since Bo Nix became Denver's quarterback. And Bo Nix mentioned that post-game in Kansas City, like, hey, I haven't beaten these guys. A couple other guys, like R.J. Harvey, mentioned that he knew that the Broncos had lost 3 in a row. Yeah. This was going – I think there was this – and I – like, it's different to have confidence and, like, know what you're working toward. But certainly this was not going to be a guaranteed win.
Yeah.
And it's still not. But obviously when you take Justin Herbert out of the equation, it changes the game, right? And Broncos still have to get ready as if they're facing the Chargers' best. We'll see if any other players aren't going to play. Like does a Derwin James still play? Well, we'll see how that all pans out. But when you're not playing Justin Herbert, obviously now the game swings, I think, a little bit more in Denver's favor than it did before. And it's a huge opportunity for the Broncos. And so many times on the schedule, it's like, it's not about who you play, it's when you play them. And part of this is like, okay, because the Broncos took care of business, the Chargers cannot win the division. And so they're making a decision, like you said, to rest up for the first week of the playoffs. And they're currently scheduled to go to Jacksonville. If they were to lose and the Bills were to win, they'd go to face the Patriots instead. But we'll see. Maybe the Bills rest Josh Allen too. He's been dealing with a foot. And so you don't know how all that's going to pan out. But the Chargers are in a place where they cannot win the division. And so they've decided we're going to get ready for the wild card round. But that decision, I think it's important to, like, because some people will say, oh, the Broncos have gotten lucky here that Justin Herbert isn't playing. Part of this is the Broncos made their own luck by winning 13 games, and that if the Broncos don't put themselves in position to clinch the division, then this game is for everything. And so if the Broncos don't pull it out in Kansas City and the Broncos slip up or the Broncos don't beat the Packers, Justin Herbert's playing. He's coming to Denver for a Week 18 winner-take-all game. And instead, because the Broncos took care of their business, this game doesn't matter as much for the Chargers. And they're willing to say, we're not going to play some of our guys, or at least Justin Herbert is kind of the reporting we've seen so far. And so, like, I'm sure we'll see on Twitter, especially from, and I get it, New England fans, Jacksonville fans who have games that are probably, like, because the other way Broncos can get the number 1 seed is New England losing or Jacksonville losing or tying. Probably not going to happen based on who they're playing. And so it truly was, if Denver slipped up, one of these teams was going to move into the number 1 seed. The Patriots are playing the Dolphins. The Jags are playing the Titans. Like, they're probably not going to slip up in those games. And so they're just waiting, hey, can Justin Herbert knock off the Broncos? And instead, the Broncos are going to face, I would assume Trey Lance is the Chargers' backup quarterback. We'll see if they, split more time with other guys. I don't know exactly what their depth chart looks like, but
I'm looking at it right now.
I just want to make it clear that, like, this is not a, oh wow, the Broncos got lucky here or they're avoiding Justin Herbert. Part of it is Denver went and won 13 of its first 16 games, which made the Chargers, to win the division, it makes the Chargers have to keep up. And last week against Houston, they were unable to keep up, and it gives Denver the division. But again, without Denver taking care of its business, none of this matters. And so we're recording right now. Haven't seen Twitter, but I know it's waiting on Twitter.
Our fortune teller.
I know how Twitter works, and I'm sure there will be comments about, oh, the Broncos getting lucky, going to get the 1 seed. No, this is like, they put themselves in this spot. And the other thing is, and again, I want to emphasize, this doesn't mean anything. You still got to go out there and earn it. We just saw the Broncos go down to the wire against the Chiefs' third-string quarterback. Like, the Chargers, those guys who are playing, are certainly going to want to spoil Denver's regular season finale. But without Herbert, it's important for the Broncos to find a way to get this win.
Yeah, and you mentioned about that depth chart. I was looking, and Justin Herbert, obviously the starter. Trey Lance is their backup, and then they have another QB on their practice squad who is a rookie, which I'm assuming we'll see how they play it out if they call him up or how that's going to work. But based on just looking at the depth chart and their roster, it does look like Trey Lance will get the call for the game on Sunday. Again, and another thing to mention, this news had just come out, so when the players spoke earlier today, they were unaware that Justin Herbert was not expected to play. And so, but they're still going to prepare as if Justin Herbert's going to play. I mean, yes, they're going to watch different tape on Trey Lance and things like that, but the preparation does not change because any given Sunday, it could be any players game. We've seen backup quarterbacks come in across the league and make big plays for their team, and that's not what the Broncos want to happen at home on Sunday with so much on the line.
And it's hard to know for sure like what you're going to see from Trey Lance because there's not that much tape on him. Obviously, he's a talented guy, former third overall pick in the 2021 draft, but he's attempted just 13 passes this season. Last year, he started one game and attempted 41 passes, completed 61% for 266 yards, no touchdowns, a pick, was sacked 4 times. He's got the athleticism, and that'll make this still a challenge, but it is, I think you can admit that it is still a challenge, and the Broncos still have to be ready to go and dialed in with also acknowledging that Justin Herbert is a special player and an MVP candidate, and the Broncos benefit from not seeing him this weekend. And they could see him down the road in the playoffs, who knows? But for them not to see him this weekend, it definitely changes the game. And I do also think that this is the fact that the 1 seed is still on the line is good for Denver because you could then see, and this is where having Sean Payton as your head coach is important too. Mm-hmm. You could see teams saying, oh, Justin Herbert's not there, we're going to ease up a little bit. They'll still be ready to go. They know what's at stake, number 1 seed. I can't imagine that they're not going to come out fired up, ready to play. And hopefully, like, we'll see who else plays. We're kind of just reacting to this. I'm sure we'll know more Thursday, but like, does a Ladd McConkey play? Does an Omarion Hampton, who has, just come back from injury, like, does he play? Does Khalil Mack and Derwin James, those guys play? Yeah. If it's just Justin Herbert who's out, this is still a really talented Chargers roster, and especially on defense, that Jesse Minter-led group is really good. But if this is like 7 to 10 of the Chargers' best players not playing, then it kind of changes things. So, again, we've seen the report about Herbert, and we'll have more info, I'm sure, as we record later this week.
I can't wait for Thursday's episode now to break that down. And Broncos country, the previous encounter, in case you guys were wondering if Trey Lance had ever faced the Broncos before, he did in preseason, August 19th, 2023. He actually led a game-winning drive with a late score in the preseason game against the Broncos back, 2 years ago? Almost 3 years ago, because it's almost 2026. But yes, that was in preseason. But again, it's one of those things where, because I was wondering that, so I was wondering if you guys were wondering it too. That's what you do. So you search it up to find you guys random information that's gonna stick with you. Now you'll have something to say by the water cooler if you have one of those. But yes, I think this matchup again is still gonna be very important. There is a lot on the line for the Broncos, and there's anything about division rivals, they love to play spoiler, and it will give the Chargers nothing but happiness to be able to do that for the Broncos. And I know for this team, knowing that their last game here was a loss, that's not how they want to end the season, and they want to make sure that Broncos country continues to come out strong. And so this game is going to be more just in that sense of just like they also want to rebound from that game against the Jaguars here at home and showcase what they've been doing all season long.
Yeah, and I to me, this is like you're right there. It's right there. And
it's so close.
Alex Singleton said the mindset was like, let's just go do it. Let's get it done. And at the beginning of the season, Broncos start 1-2, and we're talking about, okay, well, hey, the Chargers have the edge in the division here. And then the Broncos go on a win streak, and you start thinking, okay, are they back in the division race? And it really wasn't until the Broncos, I would say probably when the Broncos beat the Raiders on Thursday Night Football and then beat the Chiefs the next week in Week 11, when I was like, and the 1 seed is right there. The 1 seed is right there. But even then, you're like, hey, the Broncos have, gosh, that was Week 12, the bye. They've got 6 weeks left, and you probably can only afford one more loss if you want to get the 1 seed. And you think, hey, that's possible, but you still got to go out there and do it. And the Broncos made it through the next 5 games with just 1 loss. They've pulled out some tough ones. I mean, think how many moments there have been where, the Jets with a few seconds left just need a few more yards to get into field goal range. Marcus Mariota is lofting a ball toward an open receiver, and if he gets that ball over Nick Bonito's hand, you're probably not in contention for the 1 seed. I mean, there's moments all over the place. Is it Jalen Hurts' Hail Mary is complete? You could keep going and find other ones, right? But the margins in the NFL are so small, and the Broncos have made the plays they've needed to make. And after a whole season and 17 weeks, and it's gone by really fast, and certainly when you're winning, it goes by faster than other years. But they've put themselves in a position where one more win is all they need to put themselves in the best situation they've been in a decade, where you'll be hosting home playoff games. You get a bye, you get to rest. You skip the wild card round, and when you play the next time, there will be 8 teams left competing for. You'll be one of the final 8 teams competing for a Super Bowl. Yeah. And again, like I said, 2 home games away from making it there. And I can't remember. I don't think we've talked about this yet, but like the value of the 1 seed since the playoff format changed in 2020, there's been 70 playoff teams. I think. Yeah, 70 playoff teams. There we go.
I'm just going to say, right?
70 playoff teams.
You're dialed in.
10 1 seeds, obviously, like 10 of each seed.
Yeah.
5 of the 10 1 seeds have gone on to make the Super Bowl. So 50% of 1 seeds have gone on to make the Super Bowl. Of everybody else, 5 of 60 of the other teams. So any of the seeds 2 through 7, there's 60 of those teams. Only 5 of them have made the Super Bowl. So if you're the 1 seed, and part of it is kind of like self-determining, right? If you're the 1 seed, you're probably a really good football team, and so your odds of going to the Super Bowl increase. But the fact that you play 1 fewer game and you're at home, those things matter. And so can you put yourself into that group where, hey, these teams are making it at a 50% clip versus a 5 out of 60 is like a 1/12 clip, like what that's 8.5% or something. Math, not my major, but I think I'm close enough.
You sure about that?
I'm close enough. Close enough. That is so significant. And again, 1 win away from accomplishing that. We'll preview it all. We'll break it down. We'll tell you everything you need to know and get you more information about what the Chargers are planning on doing. But man, that's big news on a Monday.
I'm dialed in because the Chargers tweeted out that Trey Lance will be starting.
Okay.
Crazy. I'm dialed in. I'm in it. But you know what? I cannot wait to break that all down on Thursday's episode. We appreciate you guys listening to this episode of Altitude Advantage. Once again, make sure you guys leave your comments, like, subscribe, send this podcast to your friends, share the news by the water cooler, as we mentioned. And once again, I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez, across the table from our fortune teller, mathematician, math major, supposedly, Aric DiLalla. He's our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, where it is you can stay locked in as we get ready for this matchup, Week 18, Chargers at Broncos. A win, the Broncos secure the number 1 seed in the AFC. We'll break it down for you on Thursday, so we will see you then.